moving on now to presentation by Bryce Gaton, and he's a long-time EV enthusiast, advocate and consultant. He's the editor of the Australian Electric Vehicle Association newsletter and also writes for the Driven and Renew Economy. So while he could probably pretty comfortably speak to most of the topics at the conference today, this afternoon we're privileged to hear from him share his expertise on apps for monitoring EV batteries. Over to you, Bryce.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Yes, there's some brilliant speakers on this the whole day, so I've been looking forward to actually getting a chance to watch them on the video at the end of the conference, because there's just so much happening. Yes, thank you very much for handing out. And over two brilliant talkers on the bringing in secondhand leaves and on what's been done to maintain the secondhand leaves. I'm going to talk about, okay, you've got a secondhand leaf. How do you actually want to check the battery? And then I'll talk a little more about other aftermarket apps that you can actually buy to check other secondhand EVs. So first up, I better put up a warning saying science content. First up, a little bit of terminology. A battery, when we keep talking about batteries, is a connected collection of cells. So a cell is your basic unit of the battery. So something like a leaf battery will have several hundred cells built into it. And in chunky sort of things, which I'll go back 2 steps. That, by the way, is those pictures there actually show collections of cells put together in little blocks. So there's about half a dozen cells in each one of those blocks, and they build them up. So yeah, back to the cell, your basic unit, and they're all joined together. And they basically, a chemical reaction creates the voltage, and that's what we rely on when we're doing this job of moving around a car down and away from the sorry, my brain's gone to mush today. I will start again. Different chemical mixes create different voltages. And we're all talking about different battery types. You've got your lithium iron phosphate, which is pretty much what you'll find in a lot of the EVs. They're about at 3.2 volts. Lead acids, 2.1, so you get 6 cells of those. That's where you get your 12 point something volts. Nickel metal hydride, which is the early Priuses and those types of cars. So it just depends on the chemistry as to what type of voltage. Anyway, warning science content, I'll keep moving. The reason I was going into that is all of these different chemistries give you different advantages and disadvantages. When it comes to comparing lead acid to lithium, there's a reason why they've been chosen. Lithium is really light and lead is really heavy. Lithium cells, you can go down to around 20% without harming them. You can't discharge a lead acid cell below 70. A lithium cell will hold a really stable voltage whilst it's being discharged, so you get a really good even output of power. With a lead acid, the voltage goes down quite significantly as the capacity goes down. Lithium cells will take a high charge discharge rate, so really good for accelerating hard or giving them a fast charge. Lead acids hate it. Lithium cell will give you 8 to 10 years in a car if managed properly, and they'll give another 8 to 10 years as a storage system when they're not doing that high discharge recharge rates, so they can go into standing storage system. A lead acid in a car generally at best will last 2 to 4 years, and I've seen some last a lot less. So that's why lithium's a really good battery component for cars. On the other hand, lithium does have some problems. Lithium cells must never be overcharged or discharged, or they will be damaged. You can sometimes salvage them if they go too low, but if they go too high, they generally never quite recover. This is why they have what's called a battery management system to stop that. Unfortunately, some formulations do catch fire, and that's where the Samsung Note 7 or those cheap hoverboards that were around a few years ago, and that's a picture that Energy Safe Victoria put out of one that decided to go up in flames whilst recharging. I think it took the house with it. So this is why EVs use fire-resistant formulations. They're not totally perfect, but they're a hell of a lot better than a hoverboard. Mind you, like all things, as we get older, we decline. In this case, lithium chemistries do age very slowly and lose a little bit with each cycle, tiny amounts. Few percent a year. Function of lithium cell design, it's not going to go away, but it is something that they don't want to happen too quickly. Nissan, for instance, expected their battery capacity to last quite well. By 10 years' time, it will be about 30% missing, which my 2011 Leaf was somewhere around there when I sold it and bought my Hyundai Kona now that I have. But it always helps if you drive carefully, like if you don't do different pieces. Now I'll stop there for a moment. Where was I? Okay, things that accelerate battery aging. One is excessive heat. Another one, excessive cold. And the other one is poor battery management. And these days, the manufacturers are pretty good at managing those things to prevent them happening to your batteries. Older leaves, however, have a little bit of a problem with the first two because they don't have a active cooling system in them. And I imagine Walter can talk a little more to that one. Anyway, that was just all the science side. I'm going to actually look at what to expect when you're monitoring your leaf. Okay, Australian delivered leaves are all 2011, 2012 build, and therefore they're the older lithium chemistry that tended to degrade faster. So if you're looking at buying one of these, you really want to check them out. All 24 kilowatt hour batteries were in them. Nicely, Anton's one will be coming in with 40 or even 64 kilowatt hours for the later models. Now they're all 8 years old. You're not going to get a full battery capacity. So if you're looking to check your battery capacity, well, Nissan have done a pretty good job of giving you some details. On the Nissan dashboard, this is a picture of it. It will actually have on the very outer right of your screen, that's a capacity level gauge. And next to it will be your charge level. So if you're fully charging your battery, there'll be 12 bars of those big white bars right up to the top. And if your battery's still got its full capacity, it'll have its 12 little segments on the right. And then it will also give you a range estimate, as it says there, when it's fully charged. This one's about 2/12 down, so it's saying you've got 135 Ks left for a 24 kilowatt hour leaf. Okay, looking at that, if you're slowly losing those bars, that's where people were talking about losing capacity. So you can actually end up with, I think mine, I sold it when it was down to 9 bars, and you can get about 90 to 100 Ks range out of it by that stage as a full charge. So it's really nice to know if you want to dig a bit deeper than what the Nissan dashboard will tell you. You can actually go to this, the OBD2 port, onboard diagnostic port version 2, and it's just under the steering wheel there. I've just taken a picture of it in mine, and you buy a little OBD dongle that you plug into it, and then that will talk to an app. As I say, there's an app for that, and what will happen is it's all, in fact, cars have it, not just the Nissan Leafs, but I'll talk a little more about that later. And some enterprising commuter and leaf owning nerds have written apps to access all this data. So Leaf Spy is the best one that I've found for Leaf, and this is what I'll talk about through the next few slides of how I used to use it on my 2011 Leaf. If you want to actually find out some more information, that's the website to go to. If you want copies of this presentation, you can grab them off the Delegate Connect website in a few days' time when all these talks go up to the website. And for those who are here today, your tickets have actually given you 12-month access to the site for downloading the PowerPoints, watching the videos, and any other resources that the speakers care to put up. Anyway, Leaf Spy, you get your number of screens, and we'll give you all this data. It's a very nice set of data. So I'll actually tell you a whole lot of things. In this case, it was the state of health. It's 87% this was early in the days of mine. It was telling me the full voltage of the pack. It was telling me it's done 3 quick charges, 3 QCs there, and a number of other items of data. Those interesting little bars are the individual cell pairs, and it was telling me all the blue ones are just sitting there nicely, and the red ones are still sorting themselves out as far as balancing themselves out. So it's a really interesting set of data. An interesting set of information below it is actually tells you the minimum, average, and maximum voltages of cells, and that's a very handy thing to know because they're all fairly close. That's good. If they're starting to get out of whack and that battery's starting to not look well, they'll start getting worse and worse. This is a well-balanced pack. More screens, again, I was looking about that well-balanced pack. This is all the voltages are all sitting quite nicely around it. So if you're looking through the screens on your Android or iOS device, because it runs for both, you can just get all this sort of information. There's a bucket load of screens that you can access through it. If you're looking for, I'll just move my picture out of the way. If you're looking to buy a second-hand Leaf, the best way to check the battery for yourself is get them to fully charge it to begin with, and then check the dash readouts to begin with. Make sure all 12 bars are remaining. Make sure how many of the remaining capacity, so make sure it has actually fully charged, is what I was first saying, and then how many of the remaining capacity bars at the top on the outer right are left, and what the estimated range shows. So if it's on eco mode, it'll show about 170 Ks. Mind you, we used to, or anybody learning in early leaves called them the GOM or the guessometer, because it was very rarely ever even close to what it was going to be. It's just a particular feature of the early leaves. So the range estimator in my Kona, for instance, is pretty much down to the point something of a kilometre, I'll get it. Whereas the early lease was, yes, very guesstimates. And if the owner permits, let them get to run leaf spy and gather all that further data that you can get off of it. Okay, what I'm also going to finish off on is it's not just leafs that you can do this for. There's CanIron, which is for the Mitsubishi iMEV, CanZe for the Renault Zoe, Holden Volt has a thing called My Green Volt, and I only just learned about today and added it. It's a thing that's been developed recently for the BMW i3 called Electrified, and most of those are apps, so they can be got from the Google Play Store or whatever Play Store you wish to use. There we go. And I finished with about 2 minutes early so we can get a breather and actually get some more questions in, because I'm guessing there's going to be a few. Copies of these presentations, as I said, will be made available through the Delegate Connect site later in the week. Thank you, Natalie. And I better stop sharing.